The first thing my ex ruined was the sugar. Not the sign above the door, not the opening day flowers, not the 3-tier honey cake I had stayed awake all night building with shaking hands and stupid hope. The sugar. Because sabotage is always crueler when it begins with something sweet. I discovered it 15 minutes before the doors opened, when I lifted the lid from the copper bin beside the prep table and saw coarse white crystals glittering under the bakery lights. I reached in with 2 fingers, tasted them, and felt my whole body go cold. Salt, not sugar. Salt in the sugar bin. Salt in the powdered sugar jar. Salt in the labeled tub of vanilla pastry cream waiting for the lemon tartlets. For a second, I just stood there in the kitchen of Honey Glass Bakery, wearing my flour-dusted apron and my best black dress underneath, listening to the ovens hum and the rain tap against the front windows, trying to convince myself my mouth had lied. Then I tasted it again. Salt.
My name is Harper Linwood, and I had spent 2 years building that bakery from the ashes of a relationship everyone told me I should be grateful to have survived. Margot Finch used to say I was too gentle for business. She said it while rewriting my menus. She said it while talking over me at supplier meetings. She said it while introducing me to investors as the heart of our old catering company, which sounded beautiful until I realized she meant she was the brain, the spine, the mouth, and the hand signing every contract. We had met in a night market kitchen, both of us 29 and exhausted, both of us burning our fingers on cheap sheet pans and pretending not to watch each other across the steam. Margot had been magnetic even then. Dark blonde hair always pinned too loosely, hazel eyes, quick smile, faster calculations. She could sell burnt toast as rustic if the lighting was right. I made the food. She made people want it. For a while, that felt like balance. Then balance became branding. Branding became control. Control became love, if I let her name it first. By the end, every recipe I created came with her commentary folded into it. Too soft, too floral, too nostalgic, too little girl in her grandmother's kitchen. She said I needed edge. She said the city did not reward tenderness unless someone packaged it with teeth. When I finally left her, I took only the recipes that had been mine before her. She took the clients, the mailing list, the shared social accounts, half the equipment she claimed she had strategically acquired, and my reputation, piece by piece, over coffee dates with people who used to hug me at events and suddenly began saying things like, "We just heard you're not in the best place right now." Not in the best place. That was how women like Margot described you when they could no longer legally own your labor. So I opened Honey Glass Bakery on a narrow street between a florist and a secondhand bookstore, with borrowed money, mismatched chairs, secondhand ovens, and a sign painted by my younger cousin that leaned slightly to the left if you stared too long. It was mine. The front room smelled of cardamom, butter, orange peel, and rain. Small glass cases held honey buns, brown butter pear cakes, fig scones, lemon tartlets, rosemary shortbread, and the opening day centerpiece, a 3-tier cake glazed with lavender honey and decorated with candied violets. The walls were warm cream, the shelves were old pine, the tables were round and close together because I wanted the bakery to feel like the kind of place where strangers lowered their voices without knowing why. At 8:30, the first customers would come in. At 9, a local lifestyle photographer was scheduled. At 10, the Neighborhood Business Association president would arrive for a ribbon photo. And at 11, if the gods of pastry were either merciful or cruel, Celeste Dacre would walk through my door. Celeste Dacre, the coldest food critic in the city. People said she could close a restaurant with 1 paragraph and reopen a career with 1 sentence. She had written for the Metropolitan Table for 15 years, never accepted free meals, never smiled in author photos, and once described a famous chef's signature foam as culinary weather with commitment issues. She was feared, admired, and blamed for more panic attacks than health inspectors. I had not invited her. No small bakery invites a woman like Celeste Dacre to opening day unless it has a death wish or a publicist with unpaid grudges. Margot had invited her. I knew because the confirmation email came from an address I had blocked 3 months earlier. "Thought you'd want a real opening," Margot wrote, then one line beneath it, "Try not to embarrass yourself." I should have canceled. I almost did. But canceling would become another story Margot could tell. Harper panicked. Harper wasn't ready. Harper always wanted the dream until someone looked too closely. So I kept the opening. And now there was salt in the sugar. I turned from the copper bin and looked around the kitchen. The pastry cream, the glazes, the dusting sugar, the honey syrup cooling in glass bottles. Every sweet element that could be ruined quietly had been touched. My assistant, Poppy Calder, came in through the back door carrying a crate of strawberries, cheeks pink from the rain. She took one look at my face and stopped. "No." I pointed to the bin. She set the strawberries down and tasted with the tip of one finger. Her eyes widened. "Oh my God." "Check the flour." She moved fast. Poppy was 23, small, fierce, and had once threatened a supplier with a rolling pin because he called me sweetheart after shorting us on butter. I trusted her more than I trusted most people with my knives. "Flour's fine," she said. "Baking powder fine, cocoa fine, almond meal fine. Powdered sugar?" She tasted. Her mouth twisted. "Salt." I closed my eyes. Not everything, but enough. Enough to ruin the tartlets. Enough to destroy the glaze. Enough to make the honey buns taste like punishment. Enough to humiliate me in front of every person Margot had probably encouraged to attend. Poppy looked toward the front room. "Do we close?" The question almost broke me. Close. On opening day. After 2 years. After loans, inspections, sleepless nights, a landlord who raised the deposit twice because food businesses fail, and every whispered warning that opening alone after Margot was brave in the way people say foolish when they want to sound kind. I looked at the clock. 8:14. 16 minutes. "No," I said. Poppy stared at me. "Hoppa." We strip everything touched. No tartlets, no glazed buns, no powdered sugar. We sell plain croissants, savory galettes, black coffee, and the pear cakes, only if the batter was sealed before I left last night. It was. Good. The centerpiece cake? I looked at it through the glass partition. 3 tiers of lavender honey and candied violets. Perfect. Soft. Romantic. Mine. Then I remembered Margot standing too close to it the night before during the private vendor walkthrough, smiling at the cake with a tenderness that had almost made me stupid. I picked up a knife and cut into the back of the bottom tier. The cream between layers glittered. Too white. Too wet. I touched it to my tongue. Salt. My hands started shaking. Poppy said something I did not hear. The kitchen tilted slightly, but I refused to move with it. Margot had not only ruined the food, she had chosen the beautiful thing, the thing people would photograph, the thing the critic would see first, the thing that looked most like my heart. I set the knife down carefully. If I threw it, I would help her. "We take it out of the case," I said. My voice sounded strange.
Poppy's eyes filled. "Papa." "Now." We were carrying the cake back toward the prep table when the front door opened. Too early. The bell gave one clear, bright ring. Poppy froze. I looked through the kitchen window. Margot Finch stepped into my bakery wearing a camel coat, red lipstick, and the satisfied expression of a woman arriving at a fire she had set politely from across the street. Beside her was a woman I had never seen before, tall and elegant in a pale blue suit, one hand resting lightly on Margot's arm. Margot's new investor. Or girlfriend. Or both. Behind them came 3 people from the Neighborhood Business Association, 2 local bloggers, and a man with a camera already lifting toward the cake display. Of course, Margot had brought an audience early. She saw the cake in my hands. For 1 second, disappointment passed across her face, not because she felt guilty,
because I had found it before the first photo. Then she smiled.
"Harper," she called warmly. "Oh no, is something wrong?" I wanted to walk through the glass and press the salted cream into her perfect coat. Instead, I set the cake on the prep table. Poppy whispered, "I can stall." "No." "Harper." "No," I repeated. "If she wants a performance, we give her service." I washed my hands, straightened my apron, walked into the front room. The bakery smelled wrong now. Not to anyone else, maybe, but I could smell the salt under the butter, the sharpness where sweetness should have been, the betrayal hiding in steam. Margot opened her arms like we were old friends. I did not enter them. Her smile widened to hide the refusal. "You look tired," she said softly. "Opening a bakery does that. You always did take on too much." There it was. The first public stitch. Small, gentle. A sentence that sounded like concern until enough of them sewed you into someone unstable.
The woman beside Margot extended her hand.
"Delia Frost, I've heard so much about you." "I'm sure you have," I said. Delia's smile faltered. "Good." The photographer moved toward the display case. "Are we photographing the cake?" "No," I said. Margot tilted her head. "But it's beautiful." "It's not being served." What happened? Her voice was soft. Her eyes were bright. I looked at her. If I said sabotage, I would sound exactly like the woman she had described in advance. If I said nothing, I would swallow salt in my own bakery. Poppy appeared beside me, chin high. "We had a last-minute quality issue, so we're adjusting the opening menu." Margot's eyebrows rose. A quality issue? Before I could answer, the front door opened again. The bell rang. This time, the whole room shifted. Celeste Dacre entered alone, closing a black umbrella with precise irritation.
She wore a long charcoal coat over a dark green blouse, black trousers, and leather gloves she removed finger by finger while surveying the room with the merciless calm of someone who had seen too many restaurants confuse lighting with identity. She was older than me, maybe early 40s. Dark hair cut to her jaw, sharp cheekbones, deep brown eyes that missed absolutely nothing. Her mouth was severe enough to make smiling feel like an event the city would need permits for. No entourage, no photographer, no introduction. Just Celeste Dacre, standing in my ruined bakery, looking from Margot's smile to the cake on the prep table behind the glass. Then to me. "Ms. Linwood," she said. Her voice was lower than I expected. Calmer,
colder. Yes, I was told there would be cake. Margot made a sympathetic sound. I looked at Celeste Dacre and felt the last fragile piece of my morning snap. There was, I said. Someone salted it. The room went silent. Poppy inhaled. Margot's eyes flashed. Celeste did not blink. Someone salted the cake, she repeated. Yes. Margot gave a soft laugh. Harper, maybe don't phrase it like... Celeste turned her head. Margot stopped. It was not dramatic. That was what made it satisfying. Celeste looked back at me. Which components? I stared. What? Which components were salted? The sugar bin. Powdered sugar, pastry cream, the honey glaze, the cake filling? Flour? No. Batter? Some sealed before last night, some not. Savory menu? Untouched, I think. You think? I bristled. I discovered this 16 minutes ago. And chose to open anyway. Margot's mouth curved. There it was. The critic had found the bruise. I lifted my chin. Yes. Celeste removed her coat and handed it to no one. Poppy, startled, took it automatically. Then Celeste walked toward the counter. What are you doing? Margot asked. Celeste did not look at her. Determining whether this is incompetence, sabotage, or both. Margot laughed lightly. That seems rather theatrical for a bakery opening. Celeste looked at her then. If theater frightens you, Miss Finch, you should avoid entering with an audience. The room went dead quiet. Margot's smile did not move, but something behind it cracked. Celeste turned back to me. Show me the kitchen. I should have refused. No critic gets to demand entry into a kitchen during opening chaos. No stranger gets to walk into the most humiliating moment of your life and start giving orders. But there was something in her voice. Not kindness, not pity. Precision. And after Margot's soft lies, precision felt like a clean knife. I opened the half door. Celeste stepped into the kitchen and immediately stopped. Her eyes moved over everything, the copper bin, the sealed flour, the ruined cake, the labeled jars, the trash bag where Poppy had thrown contaminated tart shells, the back door, the security camera above it. Her gaze stopped there. Does that record? My stomach dropped. It's connected, Poppy said quickly. But we haven't tested playback since the electrician installed it. Celeste looked at me. Might I suggest now? Margot appeared at the kitchen doorway. I don't think this is necessary, she said. Celeste took one step toward her. Were you invited into the kitchen? Margot's face flushed. This is a small business opening, not a crime scene. No, Celeste said. It is a food service environment where intentional contamination may have occurred. Intentional contamination. The phrase changed the room. The bloggers exchanged looks. The photographer lowered his camera. Margot's new woman, Delia, stepped back half an inch. I noticed. So did Celeste. Poppy opened the security app on the bakery tablet with shaking fingers. The feed loaded slowly, each spinning circle stretching my nerves thinner. Yesterday's footage appeared. Empty kitchen. Me glazing the cake at 1:12 a.m., exhausted, hair falling out of its clip. Poppy leaving at 1:46. Me locking the back door at 2:03. The vendor walkthrough at 7:10 that evening.
Margot entering with Delia and 2 business association members. Margot laughing near the display case. Margot asking to use the restroom. Margot walking toward the back hall. Then the footage jumped. Black. Poppy whispered, "No." The video resumed 7 minutes later. Margot returned to the front room, smiling. Celeste leaned closer to the tablet. "Why the jump?" "I don't know," I said. Margot exhaled, almost amused. "So there's no footage." Celeste looked at the timestamp. "Not no footage. Missing footage." "Technology fails." "Frequently," Celeste said. "Usually less selectively." Delia looked at Margot now, fully. "Margot?" Margot's face softened instantly. "Delia, please. You know how Harper gets when she's stressed." My blood went cold. There it was, in my bakery, in front of everyone. The version. Poppy stepped forward. "Don't." Margot ignored her. Her eyes stayed on Delia, because Delia was the one with money, the one whose belief currently mattered. "Harper is brilliant," Margot said gently. "But openings are pressure. She has a history of spiraling when something doesn't go exactly as planned." I felt the room lean. Not physically. Worse. Socially. People deciding where to place their sympathy before evidence forced them to spend courage. Celeste's voice cut in. "Miss Finch." Margot turned. "You seem remarkably fluent in Ms. Linwood's presumed instability for someone who has not asked whether she is safe serving food after contamination." Margot blinked. The room shifted again. Celeste lifted the copper sugar bin. "Ms. Linwood, do you keep supplier seals?" "Yes." "Inventory logs?" "Yes." "Backdoor access list?" "Yes." "Good." She set the bin down. "Close for 1 hour." My breath caught. "What?" "Close for 1 hour. Offer coffee only to anyone willing to wait. Remove all compromised items. Test all untouched items. Review access records. Then reopen with a reduced menu." Margot laughed. "That would look disastrous." Celeste looked at her. "Not as disastrous as serving salted pastry cream to a critic." I stared at Celeste. She did not smile. Somehow that made it better. "And you?" I asked. "What about me? Are you staying?" Her eyes held mine. "Yes." "Why?" Celeste's gaze moved once to Margot, then back to me. "Because no baker ruins only the photogenic desserts by accident." For 1 second, I could not breathe. Not because she had saved me, she had not yet, but because someone had looked at the mess and seen the shape. Not my panic, not Margot's concern, the shape. I closed the bakery for 1 hour. Margot stayed. Of course she did. People like Margot do not leave a room until they know whether the fire they started will warm them or burn them. Poppy put a handwritten sign on the door, "Opening menu delayed. Coffee available. Pastry service at 9:45. No apology. Celeste approved that with one nod. Then she tied one of my spare black aprons over her green blouse. I stared at her. She looked back. "What? You're wearing an apron. I understand object function. You're a critic. I have hands." Poppy choked on a laugh. Celeste washed those hands like a surgeon and began tasting components. Not eating, testing. A flake of croissant,
a dot of pear cake batter baked in a ramekin, a smear of fig compote, a spoonful of untouched creme fraiche. She worked quietly, brutally, without wasting movement. Every few minutes, she asked a question. What time was this sealed? Who had access? Was this jar opened after 2? Do you always label in blue tape? Why is this lid misaligned? That last one stopped me. What lid? She pointed to the vanilla jar. It was not one of the salted ones. The lid sat slightly crooked. I opened it. The smell hit first. Almond. Too strong. Poppy's face went white. I didn't add almond. I grabbed the recipe sheet. No almond. None. If we had served it, anyone with a nut allergy could have been harmed. My knees nearly buckled. Celeste caught the counter, not me, but her body angled slightly closer, as if the room had shifted around my balance. Sit if needed, she said. I'm fine. No, but remain standing if that is how you are keeping yourself together. That sentence struck too deep. I looked at her. Her face remained severe, but her eyes were not unkind. Margot appeared in the doorway again. Is everything all right? This time, Delia was not beside her. Interesting. Poppy held up the jar. There's almond extract in the vanilla. Margot's expression did something tiny. Too tiny for anyone who had not loved her. I had loved her. I saw it. Celeste saw me see it. Then she turned to Margot. Do you have a nut allergy, Miss Finch? No. Then perhaps step away from the contaminated items. Margot's voice sharpened. You're making this sound malicious. Celeste removed the apron and folded it once. No, she said. I am making it sound documented. Margot's eyes hardened. Then, because she still had an audience, her voice softened. Harper, can we speak privately? No. The word formed in my chest but did not reach my mouth fast enough. That was how it used to happen. Margot asking for privacy. Margot lowering her voice. Margot turning the room into a hallway, the hallway into a corner, the corner into a place where I forgot which version of events had witnesses. Celeste spoke before I did. No. Margot stared at her. Excuse me? Celeste did not look at me. Good. If she had, it might have felt like rescue. Instead, she looked only at Margot. Ms. Linwood is in the middle of a food safety review. If you have relevant information, say it here. Margot laughed once. You don't own this bakery. No, Celeste said, and yet I understand boundaries better than you appear to. The kitchen went very quiet. Margot's face changed, just for a second. Then she turned to me. You're letting a stranger humiliate me in your kitchen? I felt it. The hook. Familiar. Effective. That old reflex to soften myself so she would stop bleeding publicly from a wound she had made. But the vanilla jar was on the counter. The salted cake was behind me. The missing footage was on the tablet. Facts are anchors when someone tries to drown you in tone. You shouldn't be in my kitchen, I said. Margot blinked. What? You shouldn't be in my kitchen. Poppy's shoulders dropped in relief. Celeste said nothing. Margot looked around as if searching for the room that used to belong to her. It did not. Not anymore. You'll regret this, she said softly. For once, I answered just as softly. I already do, just not in the way you mean. Margot left the kitchen. The front bell rang a few seconds later, not because she left entirely, because Delia did. Margot followed her out into the rain. The first reopening service was not beautiful. It was not the dream I had imagined.
There was no lavender honey cake in the window, no lemon tartlets, no powdered sugar drifting over warm buns like snow. Half the display case was empty, and the ribbon-cutting photo showed me looking pale, furious, and damp at the hairline. But the croissants were good. The pear cakes were very good. The savory mushroom galettes sold out in 22 minutes. A woman from the bookstore next door bought coffee for everyone waiting outside and told 3 bloggers, loudly, that any bakery that caught sabotage before serving customers was safer than one pretending perfection. Poppy cried into the dish sink and said she was fine. She was not. Neither was I. Celeste sat at the corner table for the entire service, writing in a small black notebook. She ordered 1 croissant, 1 pear cake, 1 galette, black coffee, and nothing sweet enough to hurt me. Before I continue, if you enjoy stories like this and want the extended, bolder versions while supporting the channel, you can find the Patreon details in the description. At 11:38, after the rush thinned and the rain turned silver against the front windows, Celeste approached the counter. I braced myself. Critics do not stop being critics because your ex salted your cake. Celeste set exact change beside the register. Your lamination is uneven in the outer third of the croissant. I stared. Excuse me? The mushroom galette needs more acid. The pear cake is excellent. The coffee is forgettable. Poppy muttered, Damn. Celeste ignored her. I should have been insulted. Instead, after the morning I had survived, honest criticism felt almost luxurious. Are you going to review me? I asked. No. My stomach dropped. No? Not today. Margot would love that. No review meant no opening buzz, no citywide attention, no proof that I had survived. Celeste's gaze held mine. I do not review crime scenes, soft openings, or businesses under active sabotage. My throat tightened. Then why did you stay? She looked toward the empty space in the display case where the cake should have been. Because someone wanted my name attached to your humiliation. For 1 second, the bakery noise faded. Customers, rain, coffee grinder, Poppy stacking plates. All of it blurred around Celeste Dacre standing at my counter, severe and calm and impossible to read. And? I asked. Her eyes returned to mine. I dislike being used by amateurs. I laughed. It surprised both of us. Her mouth did not smile, but something shifted at the corner, almost dangerous. Then the front door opened hard enough to make the bell snap against the glass. Margot came back in, alone this time, wet from rain. No smile, no audience. That was when I knew she was truly angry. You think this is over? She asked. Poppy stepped forward. I raised one hand. Celeste turned slightly, not blocking me, but no longer beside the counter by accident. Margot looked from her to me, and something ugly flickered there. Then she smiled. The health inspector is on his way, she said. Anonymous complaint, food contamination, possible allergen violation. The bakery went silent. There it was, the second trap. And Margot knew how to make the truth sound like my crime. Margot Finch always knew how to arrive before the damage looked like damage.
That was her real talent. Not marketing, not charm, not strategy. Timing. She knew exactly when a room was still soft enough to shape. So when she stood in the doorway of Honeyglass Bakery, rain shining on her camel coat, and announced that the health inspector was on his way, she did not look frightened. She looked helpful. That was the part that made my stomach turn. The customers went quiet. Poppy's hand tightened around the towel she was holding. The bookstore woman at table 3 lowered her coffee slowly, eyes narrowing over the rim. Celeste Dacre stood beside the counter, still as a blade in its sheath. Margot looked at me with a softness that belonged to another life. "I'm sorry," she said, "but if there's a possible allergen issue, someone had to report it." I could almost admire the construction. If she ignored the contamination, she looked reckless. If she reported it, she looked responsible. If I objected, I looked like a panicked baker more worried about opening day embarrassment than public safety. Every path led back to the version of me she had been selling for months. Harper is talented, but emotional. Harper is sweet, but careless. Harper means well, but she spirals. I looked at the empty place in the display case where my lavender honey cake should have been, then at the sealed jar of vanilla Celeste had set aside after smelling almond. "You called anonymously?" I asked. Margot's eyes flickered. "Only once." "I'm not sure why that matters." "It matters because you're standing here announcing it." Her mouth tightened. "I was trying to give you a chance to prepare." Poppy laughed once. It was not a nice laugh. Margot ignored her. She was always very good at ignoring people who did not have immediate power. Celeste spoke then. "Ms. Finch." Margot turned with the visible patience of a woman who had decided Celeste was useful only if she could be managed. "Yes?" "If the complaint was anonymous, how do you know the inspector is coming?" The room changed. Not dramatically. Quietly. Like heat under sugar. Margot smiled. "Small business circles talk." "They do," Celeste said. "Usually after the phone call, not before the inspector crosses town." Margot's expression hardened. For one dangerous second, there was no concern on her face. No old love, no professional regret, only anger at being made imprecise. Then, the front bell rang. A man stepped in wearing a rain-dark coat, carrying a municipal inspection folder in one hand, and the expression of someone who had been dragged from lunch by either public duty or someone's revenge. He was in his 50s, square-faced, with gray hair cut close to the scalp, and a badge clipped to his chest. "Harper Linwood?" he asked. I stepped forward. "That's me." "Daniel Bellard, City Health Office. We received a complaint regarding possible intentional contamination and undeclared allergen exposure." Margot's mouth thinned at the word intentional. Good. Celeste noticed. Better. Mr. Bellard looked around the bakery. "Are you currently serving?" "Coffee, croissants, pear cake, and mushroom galettes only," I said. "All items served were prepared from sealed or verified ingredients after we discovered contamination. Compromised items have been removed and isolated." He looked at me for half a second longer than I expected. Then he nodded. "Show me." The kitchen became an examination room. Every surface suddenly looked guilty to me. The copper bin, the sealed flour, the trash bags, the ruined cake wrapped in plastic on the prep table, the vanilla jar, the pastry cream, the honey glaze, the clean trays of croissants cooling near the oven. Mr. Bellard washed his hands, put on gloves, and began working methodically. He did not speak much. That helped.
He checked labels, temperatures, storage, cross-contact procedures, trash separation, cleaning logs, delivery receipts, and the tablet footage with the missing 7 minutes. Poppy stood beside him with our binder clutched like scripture. I answered what I could. When I could not answer, Poppy did. When neither of us could, Celeste pointed to a written log, a sealed container, or a timestamp. She did not take over. That was what I noticed most. Margot always took over and called it support. Celeste made the room easier to stand in without making it hers. At one point, Mr. Bellard lifted the vanilla jar and opened it. The almond smell rose again. My knees went weak. Celeste glanced at me, not worried, assessing. Then she shifted one step closer to the counter between me and Margot's line of sight. A wall without touching me. Mr. Bellard looked up. Was any product containing this served? No, I said. No, Poppy said at the same time. Celeste added, I was present when the jar was opened after service had already begun. It was isolated immediately. Mr. Bellard looked at her. And you are? Celeste Dacre. His eyebrows rose. Of course he knew. Everyone in the city's food world knew Celeste Dacre. Some respected her, some hated her, many confused the two. I'm here as a customer, she said, and witness. Not reviewer? Not today. That answer settled something in the room. Even Mr. Bellard seemed to understand that distinction had weight. Margot stood just outside the kitchen threshold, arms folded, face arranged into concern. She had stopped trying to enter after Celeste told Mr. Bellard, very mildly, that Margot was neither staff nor authorized to stand near the contaminated products. Watching her obey someone else's boundary was almost worth the morning. Almost. Mr. Bellard sealed samples from the sugar, powdered sugar, pastry cream, glaze, vanilla jar, and cake filling. He photographed the labels. He reviewed the served items. He checked the customer receipts. He interviewed Poppy separately, then me, then Celeste. When he finished, he removed his gloves. The sound of latex snapping into the trash made my whole body flinch. You are not being closed today, he said. For 1 second, I did not understand the sentence. Then Poppy started crying. Not loudly, just one hand over her mouth, shoulders shaking once, then twice. I gripped the prep table. Mr. Bellard continued. You correctly removed the suspected items from service, isolated contaminated products, maintained records, and cooperated with inspection. Pending lab results, I am documenting this as suspected intentional tampering, not operator negligence. Operator negligence. The phrase Margot had probably been hoping for. I looked toward the doorway. Margot's face was very still. Mr. Bellard turned to her. Ms. Finch? She startled slightly. Yes? I'll need your contact information. For what purpose? You were present last night during a walkthrough and again today before my arrival. I'm not staff. No. You are a relevant witness. Margot's smile returned, thin and angry. Of course. The bakery reopened at 1:12, not because I was ready, because I refused to let Margot decide the closing hour. The menu was small and strange. Croissants, pear cake, galettes, black coffee, tea. Strawberries. Poppy washed 3 times while muttering threats at them, as if berries could become accomplices. People stayed, not everyone, enough. The photographer did not get the perfect opening cake photo. Instead, he took one shot of Poppy carrying a tray of galettes
while glaring like she might bite the next person who said contamination. The bookstore woman bought a dozen croissants and announced she was taking them next door for morale and literature. A mother came in with her daughter and asked, quietly, whether the pear cake was safe. I said yes. Then I explained exactly why. Sealed batter, verified ingredients, separate utensils, clean trays, no shared cream, no dusting sugar. Inspection passed for service. The mother listened, then bought 2 slices. That mattered more than any ribbon photo. Margot remained near the window for another 20 minutes, watching the room fail to collapse around me. She tried speaking to Delia on the phone twice. Delia did not come back.
Eventually, Margot left. No goodbye, no last line. The bell rang behind her, and the bakery breathed differently. Poppy leaned against the espresso machine. If I ever date anyone like her, hit me with a baguette. I'll use sourdough, I said. More structure. Celeste, still at the corner table with her notebook closed, looked up. The crumb would be better for impact. Poppy stared at her. I laughed. Celeste's face remained composed, but there it was again. The almost smile. Terrible woman. At 3, after the lunch lull emptied the room, Poppy burst out of the back hallway with the bakery tablet. Harper! I knew from her face before she said it. Not another disaster. Something else. Something that frightened her because it was proof. The missing footage synced, she said. Cloud backup. It was delayed because the Wi-Fi dropped last night. I could not move. Celeste stood first. Poppy set the tablet on the counter and pressed play. The video showed the kitchen at 7:43 the night before. Empty. Then the back hallway door opened. Margot entered. She wore gloves. In one hand was a small black tote bag. For 7 full minutes, we watched the woman I had loved open my sugar bin, powdered sugar jar, pastry cream, glaze bottles, and vanilla. We watched her move quickly, calmly, like someone following a recipe. We watched her pause at the cake and touch the candied violets with a tenderness that made me want to tear the screen apart. She opened a container. Salt. She folded something into the cream. She returned every lid. Almost every lid. The vanilla stayed crooked. Then she looked up at the camera. Not startled, annoyed. She reached for a stool, climbed, and the image went black. No one spoke. The bakery seemed to tilt around the frozen screen. I thought proof would feel clean. It did not. It felt like having salt placed on my tongue again, except this time, everyone else could taste it too. Poppy whispered, "That bitch." Celeste's voice was quiet. "Send it to yourself, then to Harper, then to Mr. Bellard, then the police. Do not edit, do not trim, preserve the original file." Poppy nodded quickly. I kept staring. "Margot salted the cake," I said. My voice sounded far away. Celeste turned to me. "Yes. She put almond in the vanilla. Yes. She wanted me to hurt someone." Celeste's face tightened. "Yes. That was the one that broke me. Not the humiliation. Not the ruined opening. The almond. The possibility that Margot's need to destroy me had grown large enough to risk a stranger's body. I made it to the back hallway before my knees gave out. Not fully, just enough that my hand hit the wall. Celeste appeared beside me. She did not grab. She offered her arm. "May I?" I nodded. Her sleeve was soft under my fingers. Dark wool,
Expensive, probably. I left flour on it again. She helped me sit on the wooden step near the back door. The rain had slowed outside.
Water ran along the alley in thin silver lines. The bins smelled like wet cardboard and orange peel. Very romantic, I thought hysterically. Then I started crying. I hated crying in front of Celeste Dacre. I hated it almost as much as I needed to do it. She crouched in front of me, one knee on the tile, severe face level with mine. Harper. The use of my first name did something dangerous. I covered my eyes. I almost served it. You did not. I almost did. You caught the sugar. You caught the vanilla. Because you were brave enough to say something was wrong before you knew whether the room would believe you. I shook my head. She did not let the sentence become comfort alone. She made it a fact. Margot's crime began before my arrival, she said. Your safety response began before mine. I lowered my hand. She was watching me with that unsettling precision. Not pity. Attention. There is a difference, and I had been starving for it longer than I knew. You make everything sound like a report, I whispered. Yes. Does that help? It keeps lies from becoming weather. I laughed through tears. Celeste's mouth moved. This time it almost became real. Poppy appeared at the hallway entrance and immediately looked away. Sorry, I'm not looking. I just need to know if we're calling police or burning Margot's coat in the alley. Police, Celeste said. Poppy sighed. Fine, but under protest. The police arrived at 4:26. I gave a statement in my own bakery while the ruined cake sat wrapped on the prep table like a body nobody could pretend was sleeping. Margot did not answer her phone. Delia did. That surprised everyone. She arrived at 5:10, hair damp from rain, face pale, eyes clear in a way they had not been that morning. She asked to speak with the officer, then gave him something from her phone. Video. Not from the kitchen. From the front room last night. Delia had filmed Margot joking near the display case during the walkthrough. In the background, behind a shelf reflection, Margot could be seen watching me enter the back hall to lock up. Then she looked toward the kitchen door. Waiting. Planning. Not proof by itself, but another piece. Delia handed me no apology in front of anyone. Good. I did not want one with an audience. She only said, I believed her because believing her was convenient for me. That was the most honest thing anyone had said all day. I know, I replied. She flinched, but accepted it. The officer took the footage. Mr. Bellard confirmed the samples would be processed. Poppy made everyone coffee with the intensity of someone arming civilians for battle. Celeste stayed through it all, sometimes answering factual questions, mostly silent. At 6, the bakery closed, not because we were defeated, because we had sold everything safe. The display case was empty, truly empty. No ruined cake, no salted cream, no evidence bags, no abandoned flowers. Just crumbs and fingerprints and the faint smell of butter. Poppy locked the front door, then turned the sign to closed with both hands. We survived opening day, she said. I laughed. Then she laughed. Then we both cried, which felt ridiculous and deserved. Celeste stood near the corner table, coat over one arm. I should leave, she said. The words made something in me tighten too quickly. I hated that. Of course, I said.
Poppy, who had absolutely no respect for subtlety, looked between us and said, "I'm going to the basement to count boxes," loudly. "Poppy," I warned. She disappeared anyway. Celeste watched her go. Loyal staff. Terrible discretion. Those often travel together. Silence settled between us. The bakery was warm now, dim under the pendant lights, rain darkening the windows. Without customers, without Margot, without crisis demanding every breath, Celeste looked different. Not less cold, less armored maybe. Or maybe I was only exhausted enough to notice the human shape beneath the reputation. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For staying? You were under active sabotage." "That is not an answer." "It is one." "Celeste." Her eyes held mine. There it was again. That dangerous little shift when first names crossed the space between us. "I stayed," she said slowly, "because what happened here required a witness who was not already trapped inside Margot Finch's version of you." My throat tightened. "And because you dislike being used by amateurs?" "That too." I smiled. She looked at my mouth for half a second, then away. I saw it. So did she. The room changed, only slightly. Enough. Celeste put her gloves on with sudden precision. "I cannot review this bakery." My smile faded. "I know." "Not now. Possibly not ever. I am a material witness to an attempted contamination and likely criminal complaint. Professionally, I must recuse myself." That makes sense. It also means I should not blur the boundary between witness and subject. I understood what she was saying. I understood what she was refusing to say. I hated both. "Is this the part where you tell me I'm vulnerable?" I asked. Her face remained still. "Yes." I laughed once, humorless. "Efficient." "You are exhausted. Your ex attempted to destroy your business and endanger your customers. I spent the day standing between you and some of the consequences. Attraction, gratitude, and shock are poor accountants." "You're assuming attraction." "No," she said. A pause. "I'm acknowledging it." My breath stopped. She looked at me then, directly, cold and honest enough to break something soft. "Mine included." "Oh." I gripped the edge of the counter. Celeste stepped back. Not away. Back. Giving the room a line. "It would be unwise tonight," she said. Tonight. Her expression changed by one almost invisible degree. "Harper, is that a no?" "It is, not like this." I closed my eyes. Not because it hurt, because it respected me too much to be easy. Margot had always moved closer when I was weakest and called it intimacy. Celeste stepped back and called it ethics. Infuriating woman. Wonderful woman. Possibly terrible for my blood pressure. "Okay," I said. She seemed surprised. "Okay?" "I hate it," I said. "But okay." That time, she did smile. Small. Brief. Almost unfair. "Good night, Harper." "Good night, Celeste." The next week was not a recovery montage. It was paperwork, police calls, health office follow-ups, supplier apologies, insurance forms, customers asking too carefully how I was, and Poppy threatening to put a laminated photo of Margot near the back door with the caption, "Do not feed." The lab results came back fast. Salt confirmed in multiple sugar products. Almond extract confirmed in the vanilla jar. Trace glove powder on the copper bin. Margot's fingerprints on the camera housing. The police moved slowly because police always move slowly when nobody famous is bleeding. But Mr. Bellard amended the inspection report to reflect intentional tampering. The Business Association president sent an apology email with too many exclamation points. Delia forwarded additional texts showing Margot had known Celeste was coming before I did. The texts hurt. Not because they revealed anything new, because Margot sounded so casual. She still thinks tender is enough. Celeste will eat her alive. Opening day will finally show everyone. There is a special kind of grief in reading the cruelty of someone who once knew how you took your tea. Honeyglass reopened fully the following Saturday. No cake. I could not make cake yet. Not lavender honey, not anything tiered. Instead, I made orange cardamom morning buns, rosemary shortbread, pear cakes, mushroom galettes, and a simple tray of honey custard cups that Poppy guarded like newborns. People came. More than before. Some came because they had heard about the sabotage. Some came because the bookstore woman had become a one-person publicity department. Some came because Celeste Dacre published nothing, which somehow made the rumor bigger. At 10, a handwritten note arrived with a courier. No flowers, no drama, just a cream envelope addressed to Harper Linwood in black ink. Inside was a single page. Ms. Linwood, since I cannot ethically review Honeyglass Bakery, I am sending this privately. Your pear cake understands restraint. Your mushroom galette now has enough acid. Your coffee remains forgettable, but less aggressively so. Do not let anyone convince you the absence of a public review means the absence of merit. C.D. Poppy read it over my shoulder and screamed so loudly we lost 3 customers temporarily to fear. She wrote you a secret review! No, she didn't. She absolutely did! She insulted my coffee. Romantically. Poppy, sorry, critically. I folded the letter and put it in the drawer beneath the register. I did not read it again until closing. Only twice. Fine. 6 times. Celeste did not come in for 2 weeks. Not because she was cruel, because she was right. The case was active. Her statement mattered. Margot's attorney tried exactly what Celeste predicted, suggesting that the famous critic had inserted herself into a private dispute and influenced my interpretation of events. The security footage made that argument pathetic, but lawyers are professionally shameless. During those 2 weeks, I rebuilt my bakery one recipe at a time. The first cake I made was not lavender honey. It was plain vanilla. I made it after closing on a Tuesday, alone except for Poppy doing inventory in the basement. I opened a new jar of vanilla. I smelled it 3 times. My hands shook so badly I spilled flour on the floor. Then I baked. The cake came out slightly overdone at the edges. I cried anyway. Poppy ate 2 slices and said, "Tastes like not losing." That became the test recipe name, Not Losing Cake. By the end of the month, Honeyglass was no longer the bakery Margot had ruined on opening day. It was the bakery people came to because it had stayed open. That difference mattered. A food magazine called. I said no. A breakfast show asked if I wanted to discuss turning trauma into sweetness. I hung up before the producer finished the sentence. A true crime podcast emailed Poppy asking whether there was romantic tension with the critic. Poppy printed it out, wrote, "Absolutely not your business," across it in red marker, and taped it inside the office cabinet as a warning against society. Celeste sent one email after giving her formal witness statement. "I hope you are eating during service." I wrote back, "I own a bakery." Her reply came 10 minutes later. "That is not an answer." I laughed alone in the kitchen like an idiot. Then I ate a pear cake over the sink. Progress.
Margot was charged in early spring with criminal tampering and reckless endangerment related to the almond contamination. The business side unfolded separately. Civil claims, insurance, damages, enough legal vocabulary to make me consider violence against paperwork. She gave one interview outside her attorney's office. She wore white, of course. She said she was heartbroken by the collapse of a woman she had once loved. I did not watch it. Poppy did, and reported back despite my objections. "She looked like a haunted napkin," she said. "Poppy." "What? I'm processing." Delia testified voluntarily in the preliminary hearing. She did not look at me until after. When she did, I nodded once. That was all I had to give. It was enough. The day the plea agreement was announced, I closed Honeyglass early. Not to celebrate, to breathe. Margot accepted a deal that avoided jail time but included probation, restitution, a public admission of tampering, mandatory counseling, and a protective order barring her from the bakery, my home, my staff, and any business accounts connected to Honeyglass. It was not justice the way stories like to make justice clean. It was legal reality. Messy, partial, useful. I took it. That evening, I made the lavender honey cake again. Not 3 tiers. 1. Small. Round. No candied violets. Just honey glaze, thin as amber glass, and a ring of lemon thyme around the edge. Poppy stood beside me while I filled it. "No salt?" she asked. "Poppy, I'm kidding." I looked at her. She raised both hands. "Too soon?" "Possibly forever." "Fair." We placed it in the display case at closing. Not for sale. For us. For the bakery. For the version of me that had watched Margot touch the candied violets on the footage and wondered whether anything sweet could survive being chosen as a target. At 6:47, the front bell rang. I looked up. Celeste Dacre stood in the doorway. No notebook. No long charcoal coat this time. A dark blue sweater under a black wool jacket. Hair tucked behind one ear, rain beating along her shoulders. She looked less like a verdict and more like a woman who had spent 20 minutes outside deciding whether entering was wise. Poppy appeared beside me from nowhere. "Oh," she said. "I have to check the basement for flower emotions." She vanished. Coward. Wonderful coward. Celeste looked at the empty bakery. "Are you closed?" "Yes." "I can leave." "You can also stay." The answer came too quickly. She noticed. Of course she did. Her mouth moved, almost. "I heard the plea was entered," she said. "It was." "And the protective order?" "In place." "Health office?" "Cleared us fully last week." "Insurance?" "Annoying." "That is its natural state." I smiled. She looked toward the display case. Her gaze stopped on the cake. Something in her face softened so slightly I might have missed it a month ago. Now I knew to watch the almosts. "You made it again," she said. "Yes." "Is it for sale?" "No." "Good." I laughed. "Could?" "Yes. Some things should not be consumed by strangers on the day they return." There was no defense against Celeste Dacre when she chose poetry by accident. None. I opened the case and took the cake out.
Do you want a slice? I thought it was not for strangers. You're not a stranger. The bakery went quiet. Celeste's eyes lifted to mine. There it was. The line. Not gone. Different. The emergency had ended. The case had moved into paperwork. The critic had recused herself. The witness statement was filed. I had eaten, slept, reopened, baked the cake again, and learned that the sound of the front bell did not always mean harm walking in. Celeste removed her gloves slowly. Then yes, she said, I would like a slice. We ate at the corner table where she had sat on opening day. The cake was good, not perfect. The crumb was a little tight. The honey glaze was slightly too thick on one side. Celeste noticed. I knew she noticed. She said nothing. That was how I knew she was not there as a critic. After 3 bites, she set down her fork. I need to tell you something inconvenient. I leaned back. That sounds on brand. I have thought about you often. My hand went still around my coffee cup. She continued before I could answer. At first professionally, then with concern, then with increasing irritation at myself. That sounds romantic. It was unwelcome. I laughed. She looked at me, and this time the smile came properly. Small, yes, but real. It changed her whole face. It made her look almost dangerous in a new way. I thought about you too, I said. I know. You know? You emailed me 3 times about whether pear cake counts as breakfast. That was not strictly legal follow-up. I covered my face. She almost laughed. Almost. Then the air changed again. Quieter now. Celeste folded her hands on the table. I am still a critic. I know. You are still a baker. I hope so. I cannot review you. I know. If this becomes something, it will be looked at closely by people who enjoy ugliness. I thought of Margot, her white interview outfit, her careful sorrow, her need to name everything before I could. Then I looked around Honeyglass. The pine shelves, the empty display case, the crooked sign, Poppy's ridiculous note taped near the office, no basement flower, emotions during service. The cake between us, small and returned. I'm tired of making decisions based on what people can twist, I said. Celeste's gaze held mine. So am I, she said quietly. She stood, slowly enough that I could move away from the moment if I wanted to. I did not. I stood too. The corner table was small between us, then not enough. Celeste came around it and stopped a careful distance away. May I kiss you? She asked. The question entered me like warmth after standing too long in rain. No assumption, no performance, no old hand around my wrist dressed as desire. Just the question. Yes, I said. Celeste kissed me in the closed bakery, under the pendant lights, with the returned lavender honey cake sitting